This story begins on a Monday, or maybe it was 1,000 years ago. Time is a stranger in the land of Witchspire, and I'm here to tell you all about it. But before we dive in, please consider meeting us over at Patreon. We do all kinds of cool stuff for you, early shows, ad-free, an exclusive show, and all that cool stuff. I didn't think much when Witchspire came my way, an open world game full of things to find, stuff to craft, brooms to fly, and critter souls to harvest and force into indentured servitude. A big point of the game is to live and frolic with your other little witch friends. I did not do this, for I do not have friends. Also, this was pre-early access, so I didn't know anyone else who had the game anyway, but also crippling social anxiety. What I'm trying to say is, a good open world game, Brujah-based or not, needs plenty of stuff to do, skills to sharpen, places to explore, lore to uncover, and unaware enemies to demolish according to your whims. You start out by naming your server or world. We're taking a trip to Trickytopia, where we have no amenities, parking, or reasons to stay whatsoever. From there, you're deciding whether you're going to be a right side up triangle or an upside down triangle. Personally, I decided to go with the upside down triangle, since that speaks my truth. You can choose between two different voices, and I went with the one that happens to be Matthew Mercer. I was taken aback by the sheer overwhelming number of faces to choose from, that number being 3, with one being a full mask. I jumped into an ice-cold shower and breathed into a paper bag for half an hour, then chose the face mask. There are then a half-dozen classes to choose from, which of course sent me spiraling into an episode of extreme solipsism. They're color-coded and come with lore-based descriptions, but frankly I didn't fully understand what each one meant. They tell you what weapon you start with, but as a noob I didn't know whether a spell blade or a wand or whatever would fit me more. So I went with blue. This is a weird flex in this day and age, but I prefer to watch and play things without subtitles. Apparently, my build of the game couldn't fathom this because when I went to turn the subtitles off, they didn't go away. That was one of a few bugs I encountered, but this was pre-early access, and early access comes with bugs anyway, so that's to be expected. But at least I think I turned the subtitles off because the game is not super controller friendly. Menu selection is really subtle, and I regularly had to jump back and forth to make sure my stupid lying eyes were not deceiving me when I tried to select anything. For a game that lets you masquerade as a godless wielder of the dark arts, this game sure has a disarming aesthetic. It has an innocent look of a Disney Channel original movie, but, well, there is no but, because Witchspire is pretty lighthearted. I wouldn't go so far as to compare the art design to Fortnite, but it is whimsical, and it wants to put you in a good mood. But if that doesn't, the soundtrack will. If you've kept up with my reviews, you may have gleaned that I put a lot of stock into good soundtracks, and Witchspire is my favorite so far. It's melodic and inspiring, and I think it harkens back to the swelling and sincere scores of yesteryear that somehow fell out of fashion along the way. If you need some background music for your next D&D campaign, look here. But we're not here to listen to the music, we're here to explore the land, pillage resources, and ravage the wildlife, so let's get to it. You get to pick an animal companion during the tutorial, but it's far from the only one you get to have. There are a bunch of different kinds to collect. They're called familiars here, and they do different stuff to help with base building and crafting and stuff, and combat. I'll say, these guys are cute, and any comparisons to Pokemon is slander and will not be tolerated. They're not Pokemon, they're familiars. Anyway, I picked up this dragon Chimpokemon and then set out to make this unsuspecting sea of green my bit. You're gonna slowly scavenge just enough to make tools that'll make resource gathering less of a chore so that you can build things that'll let you gather different resources so you can build more things. I've seen this musical before. If you're into that, you'll have no problem singing along. But I ran into the same problem I did during character creation: lack of context. So the game tells you what resources you need to build something, right? But not where to look for them or even what they're called sometimes. That's not super uncommon, but in other games you can kind of glean like where to find wood or where to find certain kinds of stone or something, but the resources here are so unique and tailored to this setting, I don't have much frame of reference. So is it worth it to track down this fire-looking resource, or is it super rare and not worth my time right now? Sometimes it was as easy as totally blowing away a couple sheep familiars, and other times I roamed for hours. I'd find something I needed way across the map from my sanctuary, and then run back, find out I needed another thing, and then run back again. Hours turned into days, days turned into months, months turned into an empty maw. I wasn't a man out of time because time became nothing. Eventually, after 3 ages, my wife pleaded with me, saying, "Please, Tricky Tom, come back to us. Little Tom Jr. cries at night to just see your face but once more." To which I responded, "Begone, foul vision! Don't you see I must cross this island once more into the breach once more?" There's a lot of running around and it's easy to get turned around. I mean, you have a map, but as far as I can tell from pushing every single button at my fingertips, you can't pull it up directly. I had to go to either the settings or luminaries menu and then tab over, and I couldn't drop pins on the map either, which is weird because you do have a compass, so marked waypoints should lend themselves to that. Your hearth, which is the seed around which you build a sanctuary, is typically marked on your map and compass, so that's nice, you can find your way home. Thank God, because I spent hours on this Byzantine temple to my debauchery. Moving on to combat, it's fun enough, if a bit simple. If you've played like Assassin's Creed since 2017, you basically have it down. You mash that attack button, melee or ranged weapon in hand, you throw in a magic-based special, you command your Chimpokemon to bring the pain, and dodge relentlessly. You can switch weapons and familiars on the fly, so you can have some really hectic fun with it. By the way, I found a vendor, but I couldn't sell anything. That's not a thing. You eventually get a flying broomstick of your own. It's more like a speeder until you unlock real flight by activating the spire of the region. So you'll have flight in one big part of the map, but then fall back down to the ground and need to activate another tower to keep flying in that part of the map. So keep that in mind before you go totally wild, thinking you can go Top Gun Maverick all over the place. Regarding story, it's certainly there. It has some of the hallmarks of a typical fantasy tale, confusing proper nouns, a chosen one, all that jazz, but again, I felt like I was lacking some context. It's delivered in bits and bobs, like journal entries and audio visions, and you talking to yourself a lot. I never felt a sense of urgency, and it took a long time to even find a solid understanding of my place in the universe. Funnily enough, the fate of the world unfolds at a meandering pace, which game design-wise makes sense, right? The story doesn't want to get in the way of your base building and grinding. That's going to be a thing. Whether it's for resources or just getting XP, it's gonna happen. Playing with friends will make it more fun, so go out and make a few right now. What could help the story, I'll say, is a journal of some kind early on, something to help orient yourself and catch you back up to speed when you jump back in. Something like that would have been very helpful for me, someone not lacking in attention but just burdened by a dozen things fighting for it. Who you are, what you're doing, and why is just easy to forget. It's not bad, and I can tell the writers felt inspired, it's just that a journal or a codex would go a long way. Wrapping this up, this is an early access game, which means content will only continue to be added and edges will continue to be sanded down. This is good news. Don't get me wrong, for all my facetiousness, this is not a bad game and it's not a bad way to spend your time. Especially if you're into wizarding worlds that aren't Harry Potter. Witchspire is ambitious, but just know that everything it wants to do, from crafting to familiar collecting, to base building, to exploration, to combat, to storytelling, is markedly MMO. If you're cool with that, great. If that's not quite your tempo, then wait and maybe watch a playthrough before throwing any money down. One question I have going forward that didn't necessarily impact this score is, how intrusive will updates be in the future? I only ask because my base was wiped out from 1 and I had to restart from scratch, and I lost all my stored resources and my exploration on the map got reset, and my voice was changed from male to female, and as far as I could tell, since there was no way to return to character creation, I was stuck with it. Is this experience a blip, or will future updates kind of wipe the slate clean every time and maybe be kind of bumpy? Now, I'm sure I'll get some folks, or even maybe some folks who worked on this, clarifying some things for me in the comments, maybe some things that I missed or was confused about. I try to be on point, but sometimes I miss things. But that goes to my point of clarity. If something is not easily accessible or understandable, that kind of defeats the purpose of a mechanic being there. So, because of all that, Witchspire earns a table lamp from me. Not bad, not great, but I can see how it'll get better. But one big caveat though, is if you're super into witches and whatever, and you buy into the game setting with no takebacks, and you have 3 other friends who feel the same, then it's going to be more like a bronze or even a silver lamp for you.